Okay, honestly, this shit is fire. Okay. When God uncovers you, you'll be able to see who's covering themselves still. I see it as just like it's like you're in a different season. And in different seasons you have different understandings. I think that we begin like our introduction into God is actually his light that comes in and exposes the fact that we are covering our shame, right? We've been deceived to believe that we are lacking in the dark, that we should be ashamed. And so we have covered ourselves. So this is what looks like a lot of religious activity. And I think that people are in this mindset. They will read the Bible and they will say, okay, what am I supposed to do? But there will be a shift. And this is where God will take you to a place that there is nothing for you to do anymore. And in there not being anything for you to do, there's nothing to measure. And then in that place, there's nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to cover yourself. You are in the beginning of being uncovered, stripped of your covering to expose your subconscious beliefs of shame so that he can replace it with honor. And then the shift will be not what do I do, but this longing gets uncovered in you to know who you are to him. Because you will see that he is the one that sees you clearly and correctly. And he says, I honor you here, stripped. You try to cover yourself for the longest time. It's just like a basis of survival, right? The coldness of the night, you're covering yourself. You're like, I can't let people see these vulnerable parts in me. I can't. And it's this trying to cover up shame. And there's so much of this in the church. And this is not a resting place. This is just the beginning. So I can see now, because God has uncovered me, who is covered and who is not. I think that he's just given me this like sense or knowing or something. It might be a gift. I don't really know. But I think it's like when you were in the dark, you cannot really see. So the people that are also in the dark, there's no reference point. There's no context. But when light brings context, and he brings you into light, then you're able to see more appropriately who's in the dark. You'll be able to see from a place that you couldn't see before because you were also in the dark with those other people. I think darkness and covering and shame, those things go together. So the beginning of your introduction into God is actually the light that comes on. Back to what I was saying in the beginning. The light that comes on and exposes that you are covered. This is why I think that you will start to feel more sinful the closer you get to God, right? Because you're getting closer in proximity to his light that is piercing through you, seeing you to your heart, seeing someone in you that you do not recognize in yourself, that's bringing up all this shame about you. And then he will take you to a place, an isolated place, a wilderness type place where you're unable to cover yourself anymore. Where you're unable to cover yourself. You find no motivation to pick up your Bible. And people that are effectively able to cover themselves, they're just like, just do it, even if you don't feel like it. You're like, yeah, well, you're just trying to cover yourself. But the grace of God, and this is for people, you have to look back at this and have context and understanding. Because in the moment, you're just like, you just feel depleted of what was driving you before. Right? But instead of the driver being fear to cover yourself because you believe shame, God comes in, grace has you be still. And he's like, you're going to be still. Grace is going to have you be still. I'm going to have you on a spiritual fast in the wilderness, and you're going to be fasting from these religious activities. These things that you've been trying to do to cover yourself so that I can expose your heart motivation. In that place where you feel ashamed, where you've believed lack about yourself, I'm coming after you in that place. Because what has judged you, I will judge. And so it really will be his light. Right. And I understand when people say the closer I get to God, the more sinful I feel. And for a while, that causes like this knee-jerk reaction for you to try to clean yourself up even more. And you think that's progressing. You think that's actually moving forward, but it's not. It's just more covering. It's just more covering. And people that get that are effective at this way just become really good at religion. Like, it works if you work it, so you have to keep working it. But in working it, effectively covering yourself, you never are set free from the shame that's underneath the covering. So that has to be pulled off of you. And I feel like God has given me this sense because I'm no longer living covered. Because a grace has happened in my life where he has stripped me of those things. He has found me to be honorable. Now I listen to a new conversation. I am a new creation. It's not just something I say. It seems to be because I'm not even hearing the same way anymore, right? And it's extremely uncomfortable because I came from this place, which was most familiar to me, was to cover myself and cover the shame. The thing about shame to me is you feel responsible for it because you feel like you're like a mistake or something. And so whenever that gets uncovered, what gets exposed is your weakness and you not being able to rid yourself of the shame. And so it's like a shame cycle. And you're just kind of left in that place as God just strips you down, as his piercing eyes just lock on you with the light, and you begin to see in a new way. You first see how much you can't see, and how much you couldn't see, and how much you were trying to cover yourself, and how the grace of God is taking you to a new place that requires you to no longer find satisfaction in the work of your hands, no longer able to cover yourself by distracting yourself with these religious activities or whatever kind of activities. And so then the people that are effective in doing that are now in a different place. And I see that all the time on TikTok, really. I see it's just like the Bible is a really good covering for people, but it's not progressing by knowing it in that way. It must unwrap you before you can move on. Like, that's really what it is, because otherwise it's just something that you're supposed to do. And if you are covering up shame, you are covering up this belief that you are lacking. And so this is why I am lacking goes with, what do I do? And then the Bible becomes that thing that you can look through that perspective and say, here's what I can do, all of these things. But Jesus is like, that's not my way. I give you the robe of righteousness that gives you wholeness. And in wholeness, there is no shame, there is honor. And so then you read the Bible in a completely different way. Not what do I do, but who am I in light of him? It's a shift. And when you have been shifted, you will be able to see who is not shifted. Whenever you are uncovered and you live free, you'll be able to see who's still covering themselves. I mean, at least I can see it. It seems to be very apparent. It's like people that are like, oh, I'm a new creation. Like, God hasn't given me a spirit of fear. He's given me, power, love, and a sound mind. But they say it in this way where they're trying to keep themselves in a place that hasn't been produced in their life. And so therefore, it's a covering of where they really are. And God has to come and uncover where you really are to show you that he's with you where you really are, so that in seeing where you really are and accepting where you really are and the weakness of that position, it gives the ability by grace to go to a new position. So first you must be exposed in your position, right? But we want to cover ourselves and get as far away from the shame as possible. But the thing is, the shame follows you wherever you go because you're just covering it up. That's the weakness. The weakness is we can't do anything about that. And so it's the grace of God that actually comes in and says, it's time to move on. I'm taking these clothes off of you. You're no longer going to be able to distract yourself with this covering. I'm coming after the shame, and I'm giving you honor. The light is coming into the darkness and showing you how blind you have been, as the way, as a precursor, the introduction into being able to finally see. And when you can see, you're going to read the word a lot differently. You're going to see everything differently, because what you were seeing before was through shadows. So if you start to see thing where your vision is being corrected, first it's going to feel very unfamiliar to you. You'll see how blind you were, see how much you were in the dark, but eventually you are settled into the reality of where light is. You are now in magnificent light, living uncovered. And in being uncovered, you are not bound to yourself. You have been set free. You have been a captive set free. Damn.